Next, 2 of the Barrier Statues of the Heavens. Very nice, a very nice stun card. Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing an updated deck profile for my Counter Fairies. Now, I have not played this deck in a while, but the last time I did, about 3 months ago I think it was, I did end up getting top 4 at my locals, which, you know, it is just locals and I know that, but it's still a pretty fun deck to play and a relatively budget deck to play. The hardest card to get for the main deck, in my opinion, is the Pot of, what is it? I always forget the name of this one. Pot of Extravagance. And the strikes will probably be the ones that cost the most to get out of the deck, but everything else is relatively cheap. So hopefully you guys do enjoy this, and if you're trying out a Counter Fairy build, let me know what you guys run in it, some texts, some suggestions, always nice to see. And let's go and get right into it. If you're new, consider subscribing, very much appreciated. Starting off with the monsters, of course, 3 Bountiful Artemis. This one is your draw power, the best counter, or the best fairy in this specific deck to open, just because it really gets you your hand advantage back. Then 3 Guiding Arianda. This one is really nice to open up too. Not only is it another fairy name for Ties of the Brethren, but if you have it in your skill, you don't have to pay cost for any of your counter traps, so very nice. Then of course everything's lights, and one of the main monsters you gotta run in a light deck is of course Honest. This one boosts all your light monsters' attacks. As long as it's able to resolve, it can save a lot of your good fairy monsters. And then of course you gotta run some sort of interruption with the hand traps and the 3 Ash Blossom. If you do not have access to Ash Blossom, a cheap alternative is of course Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is a very strong card still. So, I mean, honestly, you can put that in and be just fine, but if you have access to the Ash, this just helps you stay in the game that much more. Next, 2 of the Barrier Statues of the Heavens. A very nice stun card. There's a lot of times where you go up against an opponent, and if they don't have any light monsters, they struggle heavily to get over this card. Especially if you open up the right combo, where you have an Honest in your hand and maybe some extra traps to stop your opponent from doing anything. The Barrier Statue of the Heavens is a very difficult card to get around. Of course, with cards like Impermanence, that's easily outed if you know, they do draw that, but again, they do have to draw that to get over it, or you know, a Kaiju or something like that if they're not playing a light-based deck. So very strong. And then I still run the 1 Minerva, Scholar in the Sky. I don't run the Sanctuary in the Sky to get its secondary effect, and I mainly run it because it's an extra name, and honestly, it's really nice when you're able to get a lot of counter traps going, because he gains 500 attack permanently for every counter trap that is activated, so you can get him pretty big, but overall, probably the worst fairy in this specific build. That'll do it for the monsters. Off to the spells, of course, the 3 Ties of the Brethren. The main reason this deck does very well, you just special summon a monster, or 2 monsters from the deck with the same type, level, and attribute as the targeted monster. So they're all level 4 fairy monsters, light attribute. So very nice. It does suck when it gets ashed or anything like that, because you have to pay 2,000 life points for cost. But if this goes off, you get the Barrier Statue of the Heavens, maybe an Artemis, and an Honest, and that is a pretty decent lock, especially if you open up one of your counter traps, which in my specific build, I do run a heavy lineup at 16, which I'll get to here in a minute. But one of the best cards that you can run if you can get access to them, and that is Pot of Extravagance. The extra deck really does not matter in this deck. This deck is mainly stun heavy. Having the ability to draw 2 cards by banishing 6 cards from your extra deck, which you really don't need, is very strong. And then another incredibly strong card, 2 Pot of Duality. Just being able to get an extra counter trap or maybe an Honest to your hand can be very helpful. Overall, just a really slept on card in my opinion, especially for lower tier decks such as Counter Fairies. Just a very nice tech to try out. And then 1 Called by the Grave. And to round off the spells, 1 Card of Demise. Being able to get that extra draw 3 can be very powerful. And you don't really special summon in this deck anyways, so that doesn't really hurt you. Off to the big trap lineup. Again, 16 traps. 3 Solemn Judgment, the best counter trap in the deck. Negates everything except, I did misplay with this the first time I was playing with it. For some reason I thought it had the Solemn Strike effect where you can negate a monster effect, but it negates a spell trap or special summon of a monster. So pretty nice. The only thing, of course, is it cannot stop Super Poly because you cannot respond to Super Poly. But very nice card. You pay half your life points, so it's kind of a high cost. But in a lower tier deck like this, usually you won't be going into time, so paying the half the life points to stop like a big play isn't too big of a problem. Next, 3 Solemn Warning. Very strong. Negates special summons. Very nice. Pay 2,000 life points. And then, of course, the Solemn Strike can negate a special summon and negates monster effects by paying 1,500 life points. Very strong Solemn Brigade. Some people like to only play 2 strike, but I went ahead and just went 3-3-3 just because, they are very powerful counter traps, probably the best counter traps in the game. So, of course, with counter fairies, you want to play the best. And just for some extra stall cards and, non-counter traps that I feel are very important to run in this deck because you need some extra help going second, and maybe if you don't open up the best, they can help out. But 3 Infinite Impermanence, if you don't have access to that, you can replace this with like some other traps like Phoenix Chain. Even though it's older, it still does basically the same thing. So yeah, you can run those. They're very cheap. And then 2 Crackdown. This card, again, I've said this in a lot of deck profiles, is a very underrated card in my personal opinion, just because I don't see it as often, but it's a very powerful card. Being able to still an opponent's monster can really just disrupt everything. So, don't sleep on that. You can even run it at 3 if you're not running the Imperms. I just didn't have room. And then, honestly, you could take out even the Storm and Mirror Forces. This is a card that's not ran that often, but I feel like in this deck, you need some sort of going second sort of card. And, I'm going to be building my side deck to kind of put more going second cards in, just to help out, because if you're going first, a stun deck like this is not going to do very well. But yeah, that is the main deck, 40 cards. Moving on to the extra really quick. Again, this one doesn't really matter, but I ran a lot of rank 4s and a couple of links. We got number 60, really cool because he has multiple effects. If you skip your draw phase, you get to draw 2 cards, discard 1, can be very helpful. You can use the effect to special summon 1 monster from your graveyard, but then you skip your next main phase, I believe it is. Yeah, next main phase, and then you can skip your battle phase to double one of your monster's attacks, which is pretty cool. It's like multiple effects, generic rank 4, why not? Then we got Gaga Cowboy, just in case you do get in a situation where you have a game if you just get 800 more damage, which has actually happened, which was really cool. We were in game 3, I attacked with all my monsters, and he had 800 left, and I just used the Barrier Statue and another monster to exceed into Cowboy for game, so pretty nice. Abyss Dweller, just to try to lock down graveyard decks, of course. 2 Starleech Paladinimo, since everything's light, that's a pretty cool effect. You detach 2, target a monster your opponent controls, make its attack 0 and negate its effect, so pretty nice. Number 101, just to try to steal a monster, pretty old, you don't really see it too often, but still a pretty decent effect for a rank 4 sort of build. And again, like I was saying, the extra deck isn't as important with this deck because you want to stall with the main deck. Then 1 Tornado Draw, sorry, 1 Constellar Omega, and just because I didn't have anything else to throw in, I went ahead and put 1 Utopia. If you have Utopia Double or like one of the other Utopias, you can run it with the regular Utopia. And then 1 Zeus, just because there might be an opportunity where you're able to get one of your X-Seeds out and stack Zeus in main phase 2, so just a nice option. For the links, 1 Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, Decode Talker, and for the link 4, Boral Sword and Borreload Dragon. I always like to run these 2 just because they're some nice options. You don't go into them that much in this deck, but just having those extra options are always nice. But again, go ahead and let me know what you guys think of the deck. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.